Welcome to the concluding video in this series of photographic evidence that I took on my historic flight over the Marfa, Texas plateau to verify the new discovery of Nazca type lines and geoglyphs I made in 2015. My book, America's Electric Nazca, Megalithic Marfa, Texas, published May 2016, is my documentation following the evidence that the megalithic sites found around the world are all connected by summer and winter solstice lines, beginning at Stonehenge in England. These solstice lines are precise, regular, and geometric in design, such as the connection using the winter solstice from the altar at Stonehenge. This line directly crosses the Great Pyramid of Giza at the corners and over the exact apex of the pyramid. Following this line around the world, it leads to North America continent at Newfoundland, crossing into the heartland. I followed it into the area of southwest Texas, where the city of Marfa resides, well known for the appearance of an electrical phenomena of phantom lights, both seen and documented for almost 200 years, and known about long before white man settled in this rugged land. This is the area in question, and if you'll notice, the plateau below Marfa, but Marfa and Alpine and Fort Davis form an almost exact isosceles triangle. I started at the Alpine airport because of amenities. It's much easier to go out of Alpine than it is Marfa, although Marfa is a beautiful city, and we'll start this video right about there. This is a complete flight plan, so this had to be done in several segments. There are at least 4 kinds of lines at the Marfa Plateau. The dark lines embedded in soil, some used as fence line markers, the majority are not. I think they're connectors and timers. And then we get to the road type lines. All have the same width, cut through quartz deposits, apparently without explosives or detritus. And then we get to the scratch type lines, and they could be easily dismissed, but upon examination they're integral in the geoglyphs, and you can just barely see it there. Easily the most interesting lines are the raised lines, which may indicate cabling or piping just under the surface of the soil, and this is how it looks from ground level. It doesn't look like much, but it goes on a long time. Now we're starting where we left off, and this is just looking to the west of Marfa, and this is the throat area of the goat figure that is partially over the city of Marfa. Now if you'll notice, these strange lines appear to be some kind of texturing. They have to be machined of some sort, but I can't imagine how big the machine was. You can see it dwelling at the spot too. Now these are some of these scratch type lines, and you can see there's a little tiny water well, and these are all connected in one form or another to water functions. And this is a very significant area. You can easily see that these lines delineate between colors of soil that are almost mosaicked in like tile. I don't know how they got this effect. I was not able to get any soil samples around the area. But you can see the dark lines are embedded, and in Nazca those lines are actually an iron ore deposit. These look a lot newer though, and you'll see what appears to be an indentation. This is not unusual with polygonal construction. Now here we are back at this textured area, and I wanted to show you just how large these are compared to the small cars, etc. These obviously had to be machined. I don't know of any bulldozer quite that big enough to do that. and there's the city of Marfa, and you'll see something of a probable circular farming, maybe even used for baseball field. But you can see the sheer size of this area and the line that delineates between colors of one and another of these geoglyphs. Now, these geoglyphs are made of several different things, but they're all normally outlined in some kind of lines. And you can see textured areas that, unfortunately, I'm not quite high enough. We're only able to get up to about 10,000 feet. And if you'll remember, this area is 7,650 feet high. This is the same, almost exact altitude as Machu Picchu. And I wanted to show you how rugged the area is, but that there are also structured areas too. They look too regular. And unfortunately there's a shine on the canopy. But you can see that these areas of soil coloration are clearly delineated by lines. And I don't know what is used to color the soil on one side or the other, but I expect it's probably just the addition of iron oxide or something like that. And these lines go off in the distance. You can see the structured area out there at the top right. Now this is a particular dam. I was unable to find any mention of it, except that it was a kind of a reservoir, but you can see that it's clearly connected like an electrical function. Now the thing about this dam, it's a half-mile long and perfectly straight, just as if there's something metallic underneath the surface. This is not normal human construction, and I'll show you later. Now I did find one area up to the north between Fort Davis and Marfa that actually had a little bit of this circular farming. You can see it's very, very flat. And then there's a reservoir area. But right beside the lines outline and delineate coloration between soils again. And anyone who thinks that this area is not deserving of some kind of real archaeological digging, I would have them notice that from height you can clearly see that these are foundations of buildings that are unknown in this area. This area is supposed to be minimal construction, and it only had an influx during the war itself, where they actually had an air base out there, which later became the viewing center for the Marfa Light phenomena. And the fact that these lines are completely unknown, undiscovered, on a section, an area where there is known electric activity or electrical activity, means that they have to be connected. There's no other reason for the lines. And if you look at them as electrical devising, navigational tools, a little bit of light and activity on a dark planet was necessary for navigation from above, that means that whoever built this, whoever built Nazca, and there's also several other areas, but a newer area in Kazakhstan also has Nazca type lines. These are all navigational tools, and they all have similar kinds of construction, although I believe this section, this Marfa Plateau area, is actually newer construction than the Nazca Peru. And you can see out in the distance how long, how far, how massive these lines actually are. They go on and on and on. They stretch over hill, valley, straight and narrow. And just the massive size of this area says that this is a major consequence to the ancient peoples. And you can see structured areas that are clearly structured areas. Foundational work. But the correct height, the correct altitude to actually go out and look at this as a tourist would be about 15,000 feet. We were only able to get up to 10,000 feet in the altitude. Because my flyover took place in a helicopter, we were only able to maintain about a 10,000 foot ceiling. While this is sufficient for a researcher like myself, I would suggest that for tourism you use a fixed wing airplane because they can have a pressurized canopy, and that's the problem with getting over 10,000 feet is the oxygen in the air, or the lack of oxygen in the air. And this is coming back from the north of Marfa, traveling back into the alpine area. And you can see the vegetation is back, but these lines actually continue right into alpine, just not as dramatic as they are on the Marfa Plateau itself. And I believe that the ruggedness of the area in between actually has some of its own geoglyphs created from the shaping of those rugged mountains themselves. And you can see these lines continue straight over hill, valley, doesn't matter. But when I went out there, I particularly looked for what the geologists claim this area, how it was actually formed, and they said volcanism somehow. There's no pumice in the whole area. There is no pumice, and I wanted to show you some of the caves in these mountains on the way back, because the whole area is full of subterranean caverns, fully unexplored. This whole area is wildly unexplored, and it really deserves some young feet and good boots. Remember, this is Texas. Get your permission. Privacy laws in Texas are amazingly harsh. And I just wanted to show you some of these continuing lines that you can barely make out, but they are most definitely there. But nothing like it is on the Marfa Plateau, or as you go down into Terlingua and the Big Bend area. But these caves exist all over the place. And I believe that plateau was where this helicopter pilot once put a picnic table so that he could stop off every now and then on his way home. He had a house up in here. And for a trustworthy pilot, please use Travelan. You can see off in the distance, these rugged mountains seem shaped, and I would not doubt it. Traces of the lines still exist, going back into Alpine itself, and they're also in between the Marfa and Fort Davis area. Such a beautiful, rugged area. These mounds look very similar to burial mounds found in Egypt, by the way, and also Central and South America. How do you disguise a burial mound so that it doesn't get robbed later? Well, you disguise it as a mound. But you can't disguise the regular shape. And that's what archaeologists should be focusing on. And there you'll see a clear representative of the lines continuing into Alpine itself. But the erosion on these rugged mountains make this a much older area. And I'm sure they don't want to have Nazca date itself any farther back than a couple of thousand years. But I think it's much, much, much older. And there's Alpine off in the distance as we swing back in through the same pass that we came out of. It's a beautiful little city too. A lot of amenities and very, very nice people out here. And they do have a special brew beer out here too, so make sure and stock up when you go. It's great water. But you can see traces of the lines, even back this far into Alpine itself. And caverns everywhere. For the explorer, this is the area you should be exploring. Amazing. And I hope that this flyover has given enough evidence to clearly substantiate my claims that these are actual geoglyphs and functions that can only be seen from altitude. The ancients gave us a test. We had to fly in order to see. And there's the helicopter. Now I wanted to leave you with some of the geoglyphs. This is right over the city of Marfa. There's a huge multiglyph of animals: camel, goat, and a little giraffe. I say little, it's a 2-mile high giraffe. That gives you some idea of the totality of this geoglyph. Clearly delineated from different color of surfaces of the soil and outlined by lines. And this is an amazing area. This I call the Pyramid Book, and it's connected to a center that looks just like another book. There's the pyramid and the scroll on it. And it only makes sense when you highlight these. So it means that the electrical phenomena called Marfalites was a part of this function and design. They only make sense when you highlight it and they're seen from above. And I wanted to leave some of these lines undone so you can see they look just like electrical connectors of some sort. And all of them have a water function. They're all tied to a water function. Here is the dam just to the north that I showed you. And this is clearly not human manufactured. There was only one dam that was ever built by man in this area, and it's called the St. Esteban Dam. It was done after some of these uh, uh, older dams failed, and there it is. That's human construction. This is the only known dam ever put in. So I can't tell you what a half-mile long reservoir is doing, made out of metal above the city of Marfa. And this I wanted to show you without highlighting. They're all tied to water functions, and these are huge. Some of the clearest signs of terraforming that I've ever seen are these staples, and the age of them are why they're actually popping up out of the soil. But can you imagine the machinery involved in making and attaching these staples to the soil? This is clearly not a household. It looks something like a Roman helmet, but I don't think it is at all. I think it's something else like Phoenician or something. But the function of this must be electrical in nature. This is a geoglyph I called the priest, and if you'll notice, the neck area has what appears to be an ornamental necklace. You can see the facial function, the facial portrayal, but it makes more sense when you up the color. And I believe this is how these people actually see. And I'm sure you can actually run this through a facial recognition program and get a real face. This is not pareidolia, folks. But these faces are normally oriented with the head in a solstice direction. Now this is an archaeological site I call a burial mound. You can clearly see rectangular fronts and an igloo type back. Nature does not make rectangles very, very easily. And it's too regular to be a natural formation. From up higher, it actually looks like a head or a face. And this is an archaeological site that's clearly foundational. There's something very old that was part of the architecture here. And I challenge archaeologists to explain these away. This is coming back into that throat area. And I wanted to show you that there's also something under the soil here. In straight lines, huge. This is the matriarch, and it's made up of lines, geofunctions, and mosaic. And it is really striking. It's also oriented in a solstice direction, proving that these people revered the sun and followed the solstice. Now there are 7 of these solar patterns, huge, 10-mile in diameter, so you can see that this area alone is about 30 by 30 miles square. And according to my friend Gerald Clark, this is a sign of Atlantis, 7 solar symbols. Now the pyramid book sits center, but there are also Texas stars to the upper left of the pyramid book that this ray points to. And I thank you for your views.